Testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Oh my god, guys. Okay, we should now have audio. That was a thing in OBS. I was doing a stream earlier and the audio wasn't working. I was freaking out. I literally had no idea why, so I had to stop the stream. But now we're back. Honestly, I didn't need to explain all of that because I deleted the previous stream, and anybody that jumped into this one would be none the wiser. But we're live, so I over-explained anyways. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. This is the show where we round up all of the latest news in the week of nerdy movies. I'm kind of exhausted right now, but I made a vow to myself, really, but also to anybody out there that might be watching, that I would cover the news every week. Doesn't matter what. Okay, doesn't matter how busy my schedule is. Every Friday, I'm doing the show. I'm yapping about the news. So here we are. Let's jump into it. So first up, I wanted to talk about this quote that Ian Mckellen made during an interview. Let me actually see if I can find where that started. I think it was here. Okay, here it is. Let's play this real quick and see what he has to say.
Want to do the same thing over again?
No.
How many different ways did you figure out to do this?
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't quite like that. I don't know. I just did that. A favorite time was when I detached the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco from its moorings and was sailing it through the air towards Alcatraz. That was magical because they'd built the bridge in the open air, and I was on it, and the wind machine was blowing, and I was just doing that. And over the loudspeaker, the director was, not Brian this time, was saying, "More, Ian, more." Eventually he had to shout out, "Less, Ian, less." But it was all basically that. Yes, and the first film, I remember the camera behind me, my hands raised up, and as they did that, two motor cars, police cars, in front of me were raised up by cranes, and when I, at a signal, dropped my hands, the cars dropped. These were not special effects. Nowadays, I think things will become a little bit easier, though I did destroy New Jersey the other day. Oh, I perhaps shouldn't have said that.
As one does. Well, I'm going to get to...
Okay, so there we have it. Ian Mckellen just let it slip that in Avengers Doomsday, Magneto destroys New Jersey? Here's the thing about Avengers Doomsday, bro. I'm not like the most confident that this movie is going to be good. Just because the Russo brothers' last three movies have been ass. It seems a little desperate with all the, stunt castings that they've been doing. But I feel like no matter what it ends up being, I don't think we're going to be bored watching this movie. Hopefully we're watching a great movie. Hopefully the MCU is getting back on track, yada, yada, yada. Maybe we'll be watching a terrible, just embarrassing failure. Either way, it's going to be entertaining. So, how do you even... Yeah, how does Magneto exactly even destroy New Jersey? I don't even really know. But I'm excited to find out. So, that was a little thing that Ian Mckellen let slip. We'll forgive him. It's one of those things where I feel like when Kevin Feige's assistant comes to him and he was like, "Oh, no, there was a spoiler that got let out about Avengers Doomsday." Kevin Feige, with his hat to cover his male pattern baldness, he's like, "What? said that? Who revealed a spoiler? And they were like, sir, it was Ian McKellen. And then Kevin Feige's like, well, what can you do? It's like, what? Nobody's going to get mad at Ian McKellen. But anyways, let me know what you think about Magneto destroying New Jersey. All right. Next story. You know, I did. There's been this weird controversy surrounding the Odyssey and the fact that Christopher Nolan is doing a bunch of like race swaps. So, you know, you have people like, you can just tell that this is like a MAGA account. She's like, Christopher Nolan already ruined the Odyssey. Casting Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy is absolutely disgusting and goes directly against what was written thousands of years ago. See attached on how Helen of Troy was written about. It's pretty specific. And then you had this person being like, Helen of Troy was fair-skinned, blonde, and the face that launched 1,000 ships because she was so beautiful that men started a war over her. Casting choices that make the premise incoherent are admissions that the story was never the point and an insult to the author. Then you have Elon Musk saying, Chris Nolan has lost his integrity. Mind you, that we are talking about the same Elon Musk that was lying about him being in the Epstein files, right? Remember, Elon Musk originally said that, I might be in the files, but it's because they were begging me to come to Epstein's island. But Elon Musk, I never would have done it. And then more of the Epstein files gets released, and we find out that Elon Musk was actually begging to go to the island. Elon Musk was the one that was like, please, Jeffrey Epstein, let me onto your island. I would throw the best parties. I just want to be clear that in the midst of all of that, Elon Musk is trying to cover that up by claiming that Christopher Nolan doesn't have any integrity. I just feel like that needs to be that needs to be said. Listen, and by the way, I am becoming more schizophrenic every day. Like I kind of just feel like so much of this is literally being done just to distract from the Epstein files or whatever. Do I have necessarily much actual basis for believing that? Maybe not. But you know what? MAGA has no basis for their conspiracy theories either, so whatever, I'll just throw it out there. But no, I don't actually know that Elon Musk or the Trump administration did that purposefully. Yeah, I mean, listen, my stance on race swapping, I feel like I always repeat it whenever this comes up, but it just is how I feel. I don't really care. Like, if the character, and the role that they play in a story is not necessitated by their race, then I think it's fine to race swap, right? Like Helen of Troy, as described by this guy, she's the important role that she plays in the story is that she is so beautiful that I guess people fight a war over her. Okay. Lupita Nyong'o is fine for that role. Unless the people are fighting a war specifically because she's white, and you're saying that all these people are racist and that they couldn't find a black person beautiful, like, I don't know. Like, are we really going to look that deep into the story? Unless that's the case, then I think Lupita Nyong'o is fine for the role. It's even gotten to the point where I keep on seeing people unironically making the claim that Lupita Nyong'o is not beautiful. Like, I keep on seeing people making the claim that this person is not beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, some of it does just feel racist, right? Like, it feels like people are not really being forthcoming with their positions, and they're like making the claim that it's not possible for a black person to be beautiful. Like, that's, I'm not gonna lie, those are kind of some of the vibes that I'm getting from a lot of people's statements on this. So I think it's silly. I think that in some part it's probably just a distraction from the Epstein files. Remember, Elon Musk wanted to go to Epstein's Island. Don't forget, he was begging. He was like, "Please let me onto the island, please." I again, I don't care about race swaps. Well, actually, let me talk about a time where I think a race swap would be inappropriate. Let's take To Kill a Mockingbird as an example. Kind of important that Atticus Finch is white. Why is that important? It's because the purpose of the character in the story is that he is the only white lawyer in the small town that is willing to represent a black man. It would be kind of weird if in the context of that story, you got a black person to play Atticus Finch. You know what I mean? However, if we're talking about, like, I don't know, Batman, I don't think it matters if you race swap that character. But who cares? This is just culture war brain rot. I mostly just wanted to bring up Elon Musk being in the Epstein files, if I'm being honest with you. All right. Next up. It seems like Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man are not going to be at the Super Bowl? Oh, what? So it says here from Deadline, word is Marvel Studios, which has Avengers Doomsday December 18th and Spider-Man Brand New Day with Sony July 31st, is sitting out in what's arguably a Super Bowl anomaly. So that's kind of weird, right? I feel like we were all just kind of expecting that at the very least Spider-Man would be at the Super Bowl, because the movie's coming out July 31st and we still haven't seen anything from it. Well, they did put out that little social media post where it was like Tom Holland on set and he's like running off and we kind of see the suit a bit, but that's not like a teaser even. It's like normally I feel like by now we would have gotten a trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day. It's weird that we haven't gotten the teaser yet. And the Super Bowl I feel like would have made a lot of sense for you to premiere the trailer. So I don't know. It's weird. I mean, I can understand why they wouldn't put these movies on at the Super Bowl, because the reality is that it is really expensive to air like 30 seconds at the Super Bowl. I believe it's like $10 million or something crazy like that for like a 30-second spot at the Super Bowl. And the reality is that if you're Marvel, you're probably saying to yourself, Avengers Doomsday has enough hype on its own. We don't really need the Super Bowl. And if you're Sony, you're probably thinking the same with Spider-Man. So you're probably just thinking to yourself, like, $10 million is a lot of money. We would rather spend that money on something like The Mandalorian and Grogu, which doesn't have as much hype tied to it, or Hoppers, which doesn't have as much hype tied to it. And, I can kind of understand it. I mean, if I were in their position, I would probably still drop the money, because like at the end of the day, could you imagine how big of a pop it would be if like millions and millions of Americans are watching the Super Bowl and we get our first look at Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom? That would be pretty crazy, right? Like if they're watching the Super Bowl and we get our first look at like Spider-Man Brand New Day and they reveal who Sadie Sink is playing. I mean, that would, and especially like if Sadie Sink is playing somebody like Jean Grey or something like that, like I feel like it would be really smart to air that at the Super Bowl, but it seems like they're not going to. So we'll see when we finally get our first look at Spider-Man Brand New Day. Hopefully, you have to assume that it's at least going to air like the week after. Because seriously, how much longer can they possibly wait for Spider-Man Brand New Day? But we'll see. All right. Next story. Disney finally has a new CEO. So let me actually scroll up here. This is from the Walt Disney Company website. The Walt Disney Company Board of Directors announced today that in a unanimous vote held on Monday, it elected Disney Experiences Chairman Josh D'Amaro to become Chief Executive Officer at the Walt Disney Company, effective at the upcoming annual meeting on March 18th, 2026, when he will succeed longtime Disney CEO Robert Iger. The board also intends to appoint D'Amaro as a director immediately following that meeting. As head of the company's largest business segment with $36 billion in annual revenue in FY 2025 and 185,000 cast members and employees worldwide, D'Amaro, a 28-year-old Disney veteran, is the architect of the largest global expansion in Disney Experiences history and has led the segment to new heights financially, creatively, and in guest satisfaction. So it seems like the main reason why they pick this guy is because he's in charge of like the theme parks and cruises. He's in charge of the experiences side of Disney, and he just made them a bunch of money. So they were like, sure, we'll have him take the job. And fair enough, I guess. But also interestingly enough, we also have this person called Dana Walden. So it says here, concurrent with D'Amaro's appointment, Dana Walden, co-chairman of Disney Entertainment, has been named President and Chief Creative Officer of the Walt Disney Company, also effective March 18th as co-chairman of Disney Entertainment. Walden has led Disney's world-renowned, award-winning entertainment media, news, and content business globally, including Disney streaming businesses. In this new role, a historic first for the enterprise, Walden will report directly to D'Amaro and will ensure that storytelling and creative expression across every audience touchpoint consistently reflect the brand, engage audiences at scale, and advance core objectives while driving enterprise-wide initiatives and translating vision into action. So it seems like they're creating a brand new position where this Dana Walden person is going to be in like kind of like one step below the CEO, but above people like Kevin Feige and what's his face, Dave Filoni, who's now in charge of Lucasfilm, and who's the other person I'm trying to think of? Whatever, the guy who runs Pixar. Like, she's going to be overseeing all of them. So it seems like when we're looking for who to blame when things start going wrong at Disney, in a lot of ways, it's going to be this lady. Josh D'Amaro, it seems like he's going to be like less involved in the creative. This seems to be a trend in Hollywood where they're hiring CEOs in pairs, right? Where they're going, let's get a business guy and then let's get a more creative person. I mean, that seems intuitively like a good strategy, but we really have to wait and see how these all end up going, right? Like, we kind of have to wait and see how James Gunn and Peter Safran end up doing with DC. We kind of have to wait and see how Dave Filoni and the other lady that I don't even remember her name, how they do at Lucasfilm. So, yeah, listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know whether or not these people are good choices. I know literally nothing about them or what decisions they've made in the past. So we really just have to wait and see. At the end of the day, we're just going to have to pay attention and see if they make any weird moves, right? Like, if we learned that Josh D'Amaro made a mandate that Marvel Studios can only make, I don't know, Squirrel Girl movies or something like that. Like, unless we hear that they're making weird decisions like that, the reality is that we're not really even going to know, like, how they're involved in all of this. So we'll just have to wait and see. Johnny Dome writes, to me, Underperforming is fine as long as it did well in Blu-ray and merch and streaming and stuff. John, you're getting ahead of yourself, okay, bud? We're going to get to that in just 1 second. But I basically agree with you. All right. So, next story. It seems like Wonder Man might be getting a second season after all. This is coming from comicbook.com. According to Marvel scooper Daniel RPK, Marvel Studios is very close to greenlighting Wonder Man Season 2. That would mark only the third time an MCU Disney Plus series has made it to multiple seasons, following Loki and Daredevil Born Again, with season 2 of the latter show set for a spring premiere date. John also writes, the person that did the music for the Snyder Cut is doing the music for Supergirl. John, you're getting ahead of yourself, my man. But no, yes, we will be talking about that in just a second. But as far as Wonder Man Season 2, this is actually pretty exciting. I really enjoyed Wonder Man. Although I should note that since this is coming from Daniel RPK and it's not coming from one of the major outlets like Variety or Deadline or whatever, personally I would take it with a grain of salt, but it's also not too surprising because apparently Wonder Man has been doing really well on Disney Plus as far as the actual ratings in terms of viewership and as far as the rating in terms of critic and fan reception. But it does kind of just highlight how the whole Marvel Spotlight label means nothing. Because, I don't even know what it's supposed to mean anymore. It would make sense if Marvel Spotlight meant limited series, but if now Marvel Spotlight shows can get season 2s, then who even knows? But either way, I really loved Wonder Man. I thought it was great. I'm excited to see Yahya Abdul-Mateen and, oh my god, Ben Kingsley return. And yeah, I do wonder what will the second season realistically be about, because if the second season was primarily about his experience of being an actor, I don't want to spoil anything, but is after the way this show ends, is he still going to be an actor? I mean, I guess you could follow up the end of the season and I don't, you know what? Okay. I'm going to talk spoilers, and then when I lower my hand, I will be done talking spoilers. Obviously, he breaks out the Mandarin. I forget his name. Trevor Slattery. He breaks out Trevor from the prison. Presumably, if they do a season 2, they're both going to be on the run. But maybe Damage Control doesn't know that Simon is the one that broke him out. So you could do a season 2 where he is an actor and they're investigating how Trevor Slattery got out of prison. And that could be the plot of season 2. So there you go. I figured it out. Hire me, Marvel. All right, we're done talking spoilers. John writes, why does Disney keep changing CEOs? They seem to be the only time other change CEOs is when they get bought out. Well, so Bob Iger, he was the president, or he was the CEO of Disney for a really long time. I want to say since the early 2010s. And then he basically got really old. And so in 2020, I think, Bob Iger retired. Then Bob Chapek, some other guy, he came in. Bob Chapek did such a bad job that they decided to vote him out of being CEO. Bob Iger came back, and now Bob Iger is even older. So he wants to retire again. And so now they're hiring these new guys. Hopefully, if they don't mess up in the same way that Bob Chapek messed up, then they'll be in charge for at least the next 10 years. That's probably the goal. So yeah, that's the lore of all of this. All right. Next up, let's talk about She-Hulk potentially returning to the MCU. This is coming from YouTuber John Campia. Let me get this right. Okay.
Now, being somebody who does what I do for a living, I will often send texts and emails or make calls to people I know in the industry to try to get some information. Because I am 3 shades below a complete nobody, 90% of those texts and emails and calls just get ignored. 5% of them says, who is this? 3% say, fuck off. And about 2%.
Those ones were usually for me, but
about 2% of the time that I'll send out an inquiry for some information, does one of these people in the industry actually get back to me? somebody got back to me. And they said, Tatiana is absolutely coming back as She-Hulk. Now, did not say where, did not say when, did not say how. And let me throw it out there that, listen, there's always a possibility that the person informing me could be misunderstanding things. But all I can do is tell you what I have now been told. Tatiana Maslany is going to come back as She-Hulk. And listen, as somebody who really did.
So yeah, John Campea, he's a prominent creator in the space. He is breaking the scoop. But like I said for Daniel RPK, you want to take it with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Like, I would not take this as Tatiana Maslany is definitely coming back, right? Let's wait to see if it gets picked up by some of the major trades. But would I want to see Tatiana Maslany back as She-Hulk? Actually, yeah. I mean, I didn't particularly like She-Hulk, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. And I definitely don't blame Tatiana Maslany for, its misgivings. I think that she has the potential to be really good in the role if she was given better material. Like, listen, if the whole show was like that Daredevil episode, then I think it would have been really enjoyable. But personally, I think that she'll most likely be... I think she'll be back, but I don't think it's going to be a season 2 if she is back. I don't think they're going to give her her own movies. I could see her replacing Mark Ruffalo, right? Mark Ruffalo's getting up there in age. We don't know how much longer he's going to be wanting to play Hulk. I could maybe see her being that, side character, Hulk character that Mark Ruffalo has been doing for the past decade or so, where she just like pops up in the Avengers movies. She pops up in other people's movies. That makes sense for how they could use her. So we'll see. Let's see. John says in the chat, I want Nick Cage to be someone. If Disney doesn't, DC would be cool. If then you also write, just learned Cosmic Book News used to like Superman 2025, then changed his mind super fast, bashing it, and became a Snyder bro. Maybe. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, well, Nick Cage, if you don't know, is actually going to be Spider-Man Noir. They're doing a Spider-Man Noir live action Amazon show. So that's where Nick Cage is going to be wrapped up in Marvel. I think that has the potential to be really cool, but unfortunately it is a Sony live action Spider-Man thing that isn't being done by Marvel Studios. So we gotta can't get too hopeful now, but we are getting a live action Spider-Man Noir show starring Nick Cage. We don't know yet if it is going to be like the Spider-Man from the Into the Spider-Verse movies where Nick Cage does the voice for it, or if it's going to be a separate character. My guess is that it'll be a separate character and not connected to those movies. But I'm definitely curious to see how that ends up turning out either way. All right, next up, let's talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. Apparently they're doing a new movie. Let's read it. The latest update splashes down from the InSchneider. Apparently 1917 scribe Christy Wilson Cairns, who also teamed with Taika Waititi on his unmade Star Wars movie, is in talks to write the script for a movie that's just become a priority for the new leadership at Disney. So I guess this is apparently this is going to be one of the first projects that we can sort of attribute to the new CEO and whatever the lady's official position is. So this will be one to watch out for, I guess. There's currently no word on whether Depp will be part of the project, but the idea is to focus on the son of Jack Sparrow and potentially Robbie's character. That has to open the door to Depp making an appearance of some sort. Whether it happens is another matter. So Jeff Schneider, he is an internet scooper. Personally, I feel like he's a lot more reliable than a lot of the other online scoopers, mostly because he's not anonymous. If I'm being honest, that's one of the reasons why I tend to take him a little more seriously. But yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that they're going to do more Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Those movies make a lot of money. It's now been a while since the last one, so I feel like whenever it comes back, it'll be a big deal. I think, unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, I think you have to bring back Johnny Depp, because the reality is that because of the whole Amber Heard situation, if you don't bring back Johnny Depp, whether this is the case or not the case, people are going to interpret that as Disney is trying to keep Johnny Depp canceled, and so they're leaving him out of the new Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe, whether that is or isn't the case, that is how it's going to be interpreted. So I do think they are going to bring Johnny Depp back. I'm actually not that big of a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, I definitely watched some of them as a kid. I remember enjoying them, but I also don't really remember that much about them. And then I remember I watched the last one that they made in theaters, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. So I'm not personally yearning for a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but I mean, look, I think Margot Robbie is one of the main characters. I mean, that obviously has a lot of potential. Love Margot Robbie. Her and Johnny Depp being in a movie together could be cool. And then hopefully they cast somebody good as his son. So we shall see. Let me see. John writes in the chat also, would love Cage be Zod or something because he loves Superman? I mean, that could be interesting. Like, I definitely think he could give a really hammy kind of performance. Sorry, hammy's the wrong word. But I think he could give a really theatrical performance like what's his name, Michael Shannon gave in Man of Steel. Because say what you will about Man of Steel, Michael Shannon was fantastic as Zod. I could see Nicolas Cage giving a really theatrical performance in kind of the like zany Nick Cage fashion that is equally as good as Michael Shannon, but fits within James Gunn's DCU. I mean, I think you're kind of cooking there, John, actually, with Nick Cage potentially being Zod. But I also don't know when or if they're ever going to introduce Zod, because I don't know that James Gunn is going to want to repeat those beats. Let's see. Johnny Dome says, I have a difficult question for you. Kevin Spacey is attempting to get back, so would you give him a second chance? To me, it's been long since then, but that is a hot take. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know the particulars of the Kevin Spacey controversy. Like, I never really looked too deep into them. I mean, from what I understand, and I could be totally wrong about this, I want to say that Kevin Spacey was acquitted in court. Is that true? If I'm wrong about that. I mean, look, I think if he was acquitted in court, and if they were not able to say that, beyond a shadow of a doubt, yada, 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 I think, what was he accused of? I think he was accused of pressuring a young man to have sex with him or something. If it wasn't able to be proven in court, if he was acquitted, then I mean, morally speaking, I guess I don't have a problem with studios hiring him again. But like, do I think we're going to see Kevin Spacey back in like major roles? Probably not. And to some extent, is that kind of a moral failing of Hollywood? Sure. But I also don't know that I can really blame people just because of the whole PR of it all. So I guess in short, I don't think I would necessarily have a problem with Kevin Spacey coming back and stuff. But I don't see it happening personally, but we'll see. I think he is making a movie, but I think it's a really small movie. All right. Next up, we have some weird comments from the director of Blue Beetle. So James Gunn has announced that they are working on a Blue Beetle like animated series, and that he's talked about how Blue Beetle is going to be a big part of the DCU. Well, these comments from the Blue Beetle director kind of, I don't know, it makes me wary as far as whether or not that's actually going to end up happening. So this is coming from the director of Blue Beetle. I will say that I'm not saying that they've said it, I personally would love to continue Blue Beetle 2 and Blue Beetle 3 work with Jolo and the whole Reyes family. And then continuing down here, I don't think that chapter has been closed. I've had friendly conversations with Peter Safran and John Rickard, and I know James is a huge fan of Blue Beetle, and he said multiple times that Blue Beetle is part of the DCU. We have had conversations of how we can expand the adventures of the Reyes family via animation, Soto added, and if that's something that finally happens, whether it happens or not, conversations have been had. It would be nice. I think that you can do so much with animation, and it's also a fun medium that I've always wanted to explore. So if the movie gods and the people and our dear friends at DC and Warner Brothers see fit, I would love nothing more than to continue to tell that story. So, here's the thing. And I gotta say, this is one of my criticisms of the DCU. They gotta stop announcing stuff if it's not locked. Like, the fact that the director of the Blue Beetle movie is basically coming out and being like, at this point in time, he's not saying, yes, I am excited to helm the Blue Beetle animated series that's in the works. I'm excited to start working on that, yada, yada, yada. The fact that right now in 2026, he's still going, he's like trying to like pitch movies to James Gunn in public. He's trying to be like, if the show happens, I don't know. Like, this is the part of the DCU that's just kind of frustrating, that they've announced all of these projects, and some of them are probably never going to happen. Some of them are up in the air. I don't know. This is the aspect of the DCU that they really need to get together. Honestly, as far as Blue Beetle, I think he probably should be an animated show if he gets his own solo projects. I just don't think, at least for right now, I mean, clearly judging by the box office of the first Blue Beetle movie, probably wouldn't be the smartest thing to greenlight a sequel. I think an animated series, could be cool. And then I think he could appear in other people's projects. Like, I could totally see him appearing in, maybe a Man of Tomorrow. If they do that Booster Gold show, maybe he shows up in that. But we'll see. I think John said something else. So yeah, I think he said, yes, he was acquitted. And then he said, if Drake Bell can come back, he can too. Oh my God. Listen. I don't know that much about all these allegations, okay? What did Jake Bell even get accused of? I don't even know. I know, but I do know he got accused of something. I don't know if it was something to do with a young girl. I think it was. Has he come? Okay, let me ask a question, though. Has he come back, though? Like, what is he doing? What projects is Drake Bell a part of? What are they doing? Another Timmy Turner movie? Didn't he make? Yeah, he made like those. He made 3 like live action Fairly Odd Parents movies where he plays Timmy Turner as an adult. I feel like those are like the most relevant movies that he's done. But anyways, what do you think about Blue Beetle? I want to see Jolo come back, but I'm not super confident at this point. But we'll see. All right. Supergirl. We got a new composer, and it's kind of interesting who the composer is. So if we look down here, sorry, I gotta mess with this in OBS so that we can see who it is. Okay, there we go. So if you look all the way at the bottom there, it says visual effects supervisor Jeffrey Bauman and composer Tom Holkenborg. Now, if you don't know who Tom Holkenborg is, he is the composer that's worked with Zack Snyder a lot. He was one of the composers on Batman v Superman. I think he worked with Hans Zimmer, and then I think he was the only composer for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think he was also the composer on like Rebel Moon and the Army of the Dead or whatever. So he's kind of a Zack Snyder dude. And I guess he's now coming in last minute to compose Supergirl, because there was another composer that I think was hired for Supergirl. I don't even remember what his name was. It doesn't matter anymore because he's long gone. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if this is concerning or not. Frankly, like, I don't know how normal or abnormal it is for a new composer to come in this last minute. Like, does a score being not up to snuff, is that easily fixed by a new composer? Like, is he having to redo everything, or maybe he's only coming in to touch stuff up? I'm honestly not sure. But I think what could be cool about this is that hopefully this means that they're actually taking the score super seriously, and this isn't just going to be a needle drop movie. Because, you know, that's obviously one of the big complaints about James Gunn's DCU right now, is they feel like a lot of it is very Guardians of the Galaxy-ish. And so if maybe this is a sign that they're pivoting, perhaps, and they're like, hey, we should probably have like a really strong original score presence in this movie and not have it be so Guardians-y. I don't know. I'm totally just pulling that out of my ass, but maybe that's part of this. But yeah, it is also just interesting that James Gunn went out and got like a Zack Snyder guy to work on this new score. It's almost like there's not that big of a rivalry between James Gunn and Zack Snyder, and perhaps, maybe, just putting this out there, fans on Twitter are crazy and bring a lot of this weird rivalry up when it's just not necessary. Anyways, John says he did come back. He did music explaining everything, and he is better, and he was guilty of communicating with the girl that stalked him, but it was more like he didn't know she stalked him. Oh, okay, I see. That might be correct. But I'm just not too familiar with it. And then John says, this might be a Superman thing if they share the composer thing. Not sure they said he was replaced. Yeah, well, as far as I can tell, they've not said anything about the composer change. As far as I can tell, people know about this because it just says on the website for the movie, supergirlmovie.com/synopsis, that the composer is Junkie XL. So I think that's, at the moment, I think that's all we know. So we'll see. All right. Next story. This one is going to be a doozy. So Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that I'm not super familiar with, in the sense that I've not played it. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. Apparently it's a Dungeons and Dragons game, but we are getting an HBO live action series, and there's so much weird drama around this. I promise, even if you don't care about Baldur's Gate 3, even if you don't care about Dungeons and Dragons, this story will be interesting. Okay. So, it says here in Deadline, HBO is developing Baldur's Gate, a drama series based on Wizard of the Coast video game franchise, with Mazin attached to create, write, executive produce, and showrun the TV adaptation. So, right off the bat, Craig Mazin, director or showrunner on The Last of Us show, his next series is going to be Baldur's Gate. This is just adding more fuel to the fire that season 3 is probably going to be the last season of The Last of Us. But it says here, also executive producing are Jacqueline Lesko, Cecil O'Connor, and Hasbro Entertainment's Gabriel Morano, Chris Perkins, the former longtime head of story at Hasbro subsidiary Wizards of the Coast, which is behind the D&D game universe, will serve as consultant. So it should be noted, this will become relevant in a second, that none of those people are people from Larian Studios, the studio that actually made Baldur's Gate 3. Unlike HBO's The Last of Us, which retold the story from the PlayStation games, the Baldur's Gate TV series will be a continuation to the games, telling a story that takes place immediately after the events of Baldur's Gate 3, as the characters, old and new, are dealing with the ramifications of the events in the third game. So, this is not an adaptation of Baldur's Gate 1, 2, or 3. This is a new story that is a continuation of the third game. And as I mentioned before, this is going to become relevant in a second. They are not unlike season 1 of The Last of Us and season 2, where they had Neil Druckmann, who was like the creator of The Last of Us, helping Craig Mazin bring, the show to life. Apparently they're not going to anybody from the studio to help create the show. Again, gonna become relevant in a second here. Like with The Last of Us, Mazin's passion for Baldur's Gate 3 and its characters and story led to his desire to adapt it as a TV series. He has proudly completed the Sven Vink developed game on the challenging honor mode, and he is also a longtime D&D fan, a dungeon master who has been playing the game weekly for the past 15 years, including tonight. After putting nearly 1,000 hours into the incredible world of Baldur's Gate 3... See, okay, listen. Whenever you tell me that a game is over 100 hours or whatever, I'm just like, bro, I don't have the time to put it into a game like that. I can't do that. That's why you think I can play Dragon Quest? I don't have 100 hours to spend in a in Dragon Quest. Anyways, just hearing stuff like that just turns me off. I'm sure it's a great game. I don't think I can. Okay. But also, just to be clear, I'm sure that you don't need to put 1,000 hours into the game. I'm sure he chose to put 1,000 hours into the game. I'm sure I could beat it in 80 hours probably. Anyways, continuing on. It is a dream come true to be able to continue the story that Larian... Okay, so he is giving props to Larian here. And Wizards of the Coast created, Mazin said. I am a devoted fan of D&D and the brilliant way that Sven Vink, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, and his gifted team adapted it. So he's giving reverence or whatever. I can't wait to help bring Baldur's Gate and all of its creative characters to life with as much respect and love as we can. And I'm deeply grateful to Gabe Marano and his team at Hasbro for entrusting me with this incredibly important property. Okay, then. Sorry. I highlighted this because it had to do with The Last of Us. As Deadline has reported, the post-apocalyptic drama is expected to end with its upcoming third season. Baldur's Gate slated to be Mazin's follow-up series for HBO, where he also creative and executive produced the Emmy-winning Chernobyl. Highlighted another thing here. Why am I highlighting so much stuff? The TV series will feature... Oh, yeah. Okay, this actually is important information. The TV series will feature both existing characters from Baldur's Gate 3 and new ones. It is expected to keep the D&D tradition of taking new characters who are not that powerful and follow their journey through adventures that make them powerful. The new protagonists are bound to run into beloved characters from Baldur's Gate 3. Some of them heroes, some of them villains, some of them literally devils who occupy the same world. Now incredibly powerful, they will meddle, helping or hindering the new heroes. Mazin, who is just now starting his own journey with the material as his deal just closed, plans to reach out to voice cast members of Baldur's Gate 3 with ideas for them to participate in the TV adaptation if possible. So this basically seems like Fallout. Reading all of that, this actually sounds a lot like Fallout, where This is a game that is in the Baldur's Gate lore. And it'll feature characters from the game, right? Because in Fallout Season 2, we just got Mr. House, who was a big part of the show. But it's largely following new characters. So that basically seems to be the gist of what the show is going to end up being. Okay. HBO's Baldur's Gate is designed to coexist alongside the Forgotten Realms live-action Dungeons & Dragons series. Hasbro Entertainment has set up at Netflix with Sean Levy producing. The two share D&D's The Forgotten Realms campaign setting, which is vast and could accommodate multiple TV series. So what even is the deal with Dungeons & Dragons? So if I'm understanding all of this correctly, Baldur's Gate 3, the game, and this HBO Baldur's Gate show, and so whatever this Netflix Dungeons and Dragons show is, these all take place in the same continuity? Does the Chris Pine Dungeons and Dragons movie also take place in the same continuity? I don't know what's happening here. But anyways, what does John have to say? You're saying it's as good as the Dungeons and Dragons movie. It will be fine, not amazing, but fun. I mean, hopefully. I mean, you would hope that it'll have some of that HBO shine on it, you know, maybe making it a little more elevated. And then you also say, Clayface got delayed, but I'm happy because it's not being rushed, and it might be better. We might be talking about that later on in the stream, John. But anyways, okay, so I read all of that. Things get spicy. So Jeff Keighley, he's the guy who runs the Game Awards. He went on to Twitter, and he had this to say. Larian, the creators of Baldur's Gate 3, tell me they have no involvement in the series. That's okay. Interesting. Then we have this guy. This guy is like a developer at Larian Studios. They made Baldur's Gate 3. This is what they had to say. This is crazy, dude. I'm about to crash out on main. And then if we look at his posts, I've spent the last 8 to 10 years of my life with the writers and creators of Baldur's Gate 3, and they're the most incredible storytellers and creators in the space. Only hope is that they get both the credit deserved and the characters are represented at the same level as the game. I genuinely don't think anyone can trump our writers. Our stories are built by fierce camaraderie and resolve. I have watched them write and through respect for audience and material, come up with some of the finest shit I have ever played. I hope TV allows for the same thoroughness. Don't abandon hope, but do expect the world. That's the job. So that's not great, right? you're doing this whole adaptation here, and one of the developers from Larian Studio is coming out guns swinging, literally telling the Baldur's Gate fans, I don't think that you're him. You're not him, Craig Mazin. I don't think that you could write a story as good as our game. That's wild. And then not only that, he's like retweeting like posts from fans of like, oh gosh, let's hold our hands, let's hope for the best or whatever. Then he's saying, you'd think if someone was announcing a show about a game, they would hit up the gaming press, I guess throwing shade at HBO for going to Deadline to break the story and not, IGN or whatever. Again, now this is funny. He reposted somebody saying, Craig Mazin threatens to make a new video game adaptation. I guess I should have brought this up earlier. Yes, Craig Mazin famously screwed up The Last of Us Part 2. Listen. I get it. This is a what have you done for me lately type of environment, right? Video games and movies. Yes, The Last of Us Season 2 was not a faithful adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2. In my opinion, it's much worse than The Last of Us Part 2. But is it like a horrible season of television? I don't necessarily think so. It just felt like, as I was watching it, it felt like Craig Mazin was actively asking himself the question, how can I make this worse than the game? That's what it felt like he was asking himself at every point making that season. So I don't think it was terrible, and The Last of Us Season 1 was great, and he made Chernobyl, which I haven't seen, but I hear is good. So I'm not going to sit here and say Baldur's Gate is doomed because a guy who's really talented made one season of a show that wasn't that great, but still wasn't terrible, but he just made different creative decisions from the game. I don't know. Because also, let's be real. The Last of Us Part 2 is such a hard game to adapt. Like, you're either going balls deep into what that game is about and the very bold creative risks that game took, which I think they should have leaned more into. I think they should have just said, screw it. We're not going to reveal Abby's motivations. We are just going to wait and reveal it at the midpoint of the story. Like, I think they should have gone balls deep into all of that. But I can understand why they would want to make it more palatable for audiences. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why they would do that. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if he's going to try and, make wacky decisions. But I would assume that it's going to be not as divisive of a story, and it is going to be more crowd pleasing. So I wouldn't worry about him messing around with Baldur's Gate 3 just because of The Last of Us Season 2. But we'll see. Anyways, he keeps on this Larian developer keeps on retweeting people. I'm out. 1.3 seconds. Like, dude, this is crazy. He retweeted, son, what the fuck are we doing? Somebody waving the red flag. He's retweeting that. He's retweeting this guy saying, I'm out. Haha, very funny discussing fish. Wait a damn minute. That's hilarious, dude. They're going to make Baldur's Gate 3 woke. Brother, have I got news for you. Okay, well, that's a culture war thing. Not to my knowledge. Okay, wait, what is this? Okay, I guess we'll read this. So, this is Sven Vink, whatever his name is. He is, I believe, the director of Baldur's Gate 3, and I think he's like the CEO of Larian. This was his response. Crazy that a story that started out in a small conference room eventually evolved into a narrative inspiring enough for it to become an HBO series. We worked incredibly hard on making Baldur's Gate 3 worthy of its legacy. Its characters and narratives are the result of many teams working together, and I think I can speak for them all in saying that they'll think this is cool and hope for what comes next will enjoy the same level of passion. The endings of Baldur's Gate 3 were created so they could serve as narrative soil for new adventures. There's plenty of directions they could go. I'm eager to find out which ones Craig and his team will pick. He's reached out for a chat, so we'll have the opportunity to tell him our thoughts. Crossing fingers that the story we're cooking up for Divinity will eventually grow to the same heights, certainly putting in the hours. So then somebody asked him, Sven, are any Larian writers consulting on the show? He says, not to my knowledge, but Craig did reach out to ask if he could come over to the studio to speak with us. From the conversation we had, I think he truly is a big fan, which gives me hope. So, it seems like, it seems at this point, I think it'll probably end up being the case that I think it would behoove them at this point, because listen, whether you think the Larian developers are being unprofessional, whether you think that that they're crashing out, so to speak, the reality is that the majority of gamers, the majority of Baldur's Gate 3 fans, they want the developers involved. I mean, that just is what it is. You know, I think it would behoove them to bring on the director of Baldur's Gate 3 or bring on some of the writers to be producers on the show and like actively be involved in the process. I think it would behoove them to do that. But you know, we'll see. Johnny Dome, you're saying stream maybe? Oh, you mean for Baldur's Gate 3? Maybe. I don't know. I just here's the problem. I don't have a ton of time, and whenever I'm gaming, I'm usually gaming whenever I can find the time to game, I'm usually doing it on like my ROG Ally. So I just don't know if I'm really ever going to have the time to stream video games regularly. Like, this is the main reason why I started this live show back up again. It's because I realized that just making videos, there was so many news stories that I just wasn't covering on the channel. And I decided that was annoying me. And so every Friday, I'm going to be live. Doesn't matter what. I'm just going to come up here and yap about all the news stories that I feel like talking about. So like, I would not be like, this is such a fascinating situation here. I would not be talking about it if it wasn't for this live show. Like, I would never get around to making a video about it. So, I mean, listen, I'd like to, you know, stream video games and stuff like that, but I just don't know if I'm ever going to have the time. But who knows? Maybe one day. Let's see. I want to go through the rest of his retweets. I'm sure this person says, I'm sure this is going to turn out really good and no quality will be lost in eliminating the core element that made Baldur's Gate 3 Baldur's Gate 3. I believe they're talking about Craig Mazin butchering The Last of Us 2. I mean, dude, this is so wild. Let me see. Is there anything else here that's kind of crazy? Okay, so at least now Larian Studio. Oh, this is the official Larian Studios account. They're getting into the more like funny, wholesome posts where I guess they're doing a bunch of fan casts for a bunch of the characters, and it's a little meme post. Okay, that's cute. Okay, so now these are okay. Miss Piggy has been cast in HBO's Baldur's Gate 3 as Shadowheart, and then he reposted a post talking about that. That's fun. Okay. Dude, it is so that this is such a wild, like, I don't know. I feel like I've never seen this before. I feel like I've never seen a situation where they announce that something is getting adapted and then like the original artists behind the adapted thing just immediately come out being like, we think this is gonna suck. But who knows? That's so crazy. Anyways, John says, I was also thinking a collab chat maybe. Are you like a content creator? Maybe. Yeah, that could be fun. I'll tell you what, dude. Listen, I've never collabed with anybody either. I don't even know how do you... This is my Twitter. Let me just pull it up real quick. This is my Twitter. Feel free to, I guess, send me a DM maybe. I don't know. I don't know. How do collabs work? I don't even know, dude. Yeah, you're a YouTuber. Cool. Maybe send me a DM. I don't know how we would set this up. But sure. Yeah, I think that could be fun. Anyways, after the stream, I guess I'll check because now I don't even know if my account is activated to receive DMs or whatever. I assume that's activated by default. So, yeah, just shoot me a message. We can maybe set something up. Okay, let's talk about this now. The topic of the show, the title, the thing that this is titled for. Ted Sarandos, apparently, contradicting James Gunn. Calling James Gunn a liar, saying that his pants are on fire. Is that actually what he said? Kind of, maybe. Let's watch this video here and let's see.
That is the industry. It is the industry standard for self-enforcement. However, routinely movies that underperform, the window moves a little bit. And Superman was a little shorter window, and Sinners was a little longer window, but they still could refer to it as a 45-day window.
And so I guess the trend.
Okay, so I probably should have started playing it a little earlier than that, but the gist of that was I think his name is Cory Booker. They're at a Senate hearing, and he asked Ted Sarandos if he's going to be honoring the traditional 45-day theatrical window. Ted Sarandos says, yes, but that's a little flexible. Because sometimes, if a movie's underperforming, that theatrical window might be a little shorter. And sometimes, if a movie's overperforming, that theatrical window might be a little longer. The movie that he used to talk about an underperforming movie is Superman. And it should be noted that this is also referring to the exclusive theatrical window. Yes, I'm aware that Superman was in theaters for like 80 to 90 days. So, listen, first of all, this needs to be stated. Some of y'all are way too invested in the box office of this movie, okay? You got your Snyder bros or whatever out here going like, we were right. The movie flopped. And now my entire personality is vindicated. My entire personality, which is just hating on the DCU and James Gunn. We've been vindicated. The movie flopped. Then you have your Gunn dick riders being like, no, the movie was definitely you don't understand. You're misunderstanding Ted Sarandos. He's not saying that the movie underperformed. The reality is that the truth here is kind of in between the two extremes here. So, first of all, let's define our terms, okay? Underperform does not mean flop, okay? A movie can make a profit. It can, it can be successful in that sense. It can earn money and still underperform. Do you want to know what movie underperformed this year? Avatar: Fire and Ass. Okay? And that's a movie that made like $1.4 billion. That was a profitable movie, but it still underperformed. Why did it underperform? It's because Disney was expecting like $2 billion from it. Because of how much money the previous Avatar movies had made. So, no. Superman did not flop. Even if it underperformed, it did not flop, okay? I mean, like, there's so many, like, this has been reported in so many outlets that it made like over $100 million in profit, okay? Whether it be this Variety article that said, but the remaining lineup has delivered some enviable profit margins. Case in point, Sinners is expected to generate around $60 million in theatrical profit. Superman around $125 million in profit. There was this Forbes article that said, some websites, mostly on low-quality fan sites that push rumors and clickbait, are trying to spin things as if Superman is some sort of box office failure and that audiences aren't interested. The film generated more than $100 million in profits, had great reviews and audience scores, and did big numbers in theaters and home entertainment, but you can safely ignore it and anyone pushing those false narratives. The Wrap said, Superman generated more than $100 million in profit for Warner Brothers through theatrical revenues, streaming, and merchandise, according to an insider. And I mean, even Bloomberg came out and was like, by the way, I'm getting this from the Wikipedia, just because I don't know, I'm not paying for Bloomberg, sorry. According to Variety, the film was expected to earn a theatrical profit of approximately $125 million, while Bloomberg Businessweek and The Wrap both reported that the film earned over $100 million in profit through a combination of ticket sales, online home media rentals, and merchandise partnerships. So, like, the movie made money. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. By the way, even Netflix themselves, right? Even Netflix themselves have acknowledged that the movie was successful. So, if we come over here, it says, this is a quote from Netflix. I think, wait, is this Ted Sarandos himself, actually? Yes, this is a quote from Ted Sarandos himself. And by the way, another important aspect to this is Ted Sarandos in the video clip that I played for you, he was speaking in front of Congress, which means that he's telling the truth, okay? You literally cannot lie in front of Congress. Although I think that there are examples of politicians lying in front of Congress during the Trump administration, but in general, you shouldn't lie in front of Congress, or else the repercussions for that will be really bad. But similarly, the quote that I'm about to tell you right now is Netflix acknowledging that Superman was successful, and in this quote, he's speaking in front of shareholders. So similarly, you can't lie to your shareholders, okay? That's just not a thing that happens. Anyways, Ted Sarandos said this: "We're deeply committed to releasing those movies exactly the way they've released those movies today," he said. "If we did this deal 24 months ago, all of those movies we saw this year do so well at the box office for Warner Brothers would have been released in the same way in theaters. I'm talking about," right? He's talking about the movies that did well at the box office. "I'm talking about Minecraft. I'm talking about Superman. I'm talking about Weapons, all those movies, and Sinners." So, Ted Sarandos himself, he's saying that Superman did well at the box office. So, I think what he means when he says that Superman underperformed, I think all he's saying there is that they were maybe expecting or hoping for Superman to do a little bit better, right? They were probably hoping or expecting it to make like $800 million. It came in at $600 million. Now, if you ask me, given the state of the comic book movie genre, especially given the state of where DC was, right? We're talking about DC being a brand that was so bad that you had the Flash, you had Blue Beetle, you had Aquaman, you had Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, that like these movies were all making like less than like what was it again? I think the Flash made like $200 something million. That's even with Michael Keaton as Batman coming back. You had Blue Beetle making like $100 something million. Shazam, I think, made $100 something million. I think Aquaman, the first one made $1 billion. The second Aquaman movie only made like $400 million. I think when you're taking all of that into account, I think you have to look at a $600 million Superman movie as a win. And so, based off of all the quotes and all the stuff that we have, I think even though Superman may have underperformed based on what they were hoping or expecting from it, I think that Warner Brothers at the time considered Superman a win. And I think Netflix, now that they're buying Warner Brothers, I also think that they consider Superman to be a win. And I mean, it was successful, it made money, and it served as a good launching pad moving forward. Now, okay, there's that, okay? I gave the positive side about all of this, okay? Because I'm fair and balanced. This does kind of contradict what James Gunn said, okay? Let's get into this here. So, at the time, when they shortened the exclusive theatrical window, James Gunn said that he gave a reason as to why they were doing it, and it was not because it underperformed, okay? So this is what James Gunn said at the time. This is in an interview with Screen Rant. Superman was such a massive success, says Screen Rant. Over $500 million worldwide, and it really set the stage for the DCU moving forward. I was a little heartbroken to see it's already going to be on digital so soon after because I love a good long theatrical campaign. James Gunn says, me too. Screen Rant asks, what was the mindset in going to streaming that soon after? James says, well, it's very complicated, but the truth is, it is because of Peacemaker. I originally thought Peacemaker was going to be coming out next month. There was a lot of things that are beyond our control, so that Peacemaker is coming out now, and at the end of the day, I wanted everyone to be able to see Superman that wanted to, even those people who wouldn't get to a theater before Peacemaker, and that's really the reason for it. So, this is one of those situations with James Gunn where he's kind of not maybe lying if you want to look at this statement really charitably, but also not giving the whole full truth either, right? He says, well, it's very complicated, right? Technically, amongst all of those complications could be that it underperformed, right? That could be some of the complications that he could be talking about, right? But I would consider this as yes, this is James Gunn being dishonest. And I think it's fine for CEOs to lie to us. Okay, that sounds bad. Hold on, let me let me rephrase. I think it is okay for CEOs to play the PR game. Okay, I think it's fine for Marvel or Kevin Feige or James Gunn to be like, we actually haven't cast Batman yet. Or, whether it be like something like Andrew Garfield saying, I'm not in No Way Home. I think it's fine for them to lie so that, the optics of their studio are better or whatever. Or so that they don't reveal a new casting until they really want to reveal it. I think it's fine, because then guess what? Then we can honestly report on it. In situations like this, we get to call them out. I'm not so emotionally invested in all of this where I'm like, again, I'm mostly talking about the people on Twitter where they're like, James Gunn lied. He's a liar or whatever. It's like, yeah, he's a liar. Kevin Feige's a liar. Andrew Garfield's a liar. It's like, it's fine. Honestly, it's fun for us, I feel like, I feel like part of the job or part of the fun of all of this is us, going through all of their quotes and trying to figure out what the truth is. So, yes, I think James Gunn was being dishonest there. Do I think it was a full lie? Probably not. I'm sure part of it was that he wanted people to watch Superman before they watch Peacemaker Season 2. But yes, as Ted Sarandos said in the earnings call, or not in the earnings call, in the Senate hearing, it was also because the movie was kind of underperforming, and so they figured we might as well put it on streaming now. And again, remember, underperforming does not mean flop, right? like they're saying that Sinners was overperforming, so they kept it in theaters longer. Superman still made like twice the amount of money that Sinners made. So there you go. Okay. What are you saying, John? Okay, so you're saying that you usually use StreamYard, I assume, for the collaborations. Yeah, so I've heard the term StreamYard before, but I've never used it. So I don't know. Maybe we can do something with StreamYard. You're also saying, but to be clear, he didn't specifically say Superman underperformed. Sure, the movie has a lesser window, but so did Jurassic World. Well, that's the thing, though. I would argue that the new Jurassic World movie did underperform, because I want to say that movie made like $800 million, right? The previous Jurassic World movies made $1 billion. So for the standards of Jurassic World, it kind of did underperform. And we're also, and another point that should be made is that a lot of these things are also probably front loaded, right? Like Superman and Jurassic World, these are probably movies that made most of their money like very quickly after it came out, within the first few weeks. And then less and less people were coming by the time you get to the 45-day theatrical window. As opposed to Sinners, which didn't start off super high. It didn't start off with a crazy box office, but people were just continuously checking it out over the period of time. And so the box office was probably just really steady. And so that, in that sense, it overperformed. And then you're also saying it can underperform, but also be profitable if a studio expects big profit, but did a medium profit, it underperformed. That's very true. I agree with that. The Texas senator went hard on Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery. I think, I heard about that. I think Ted Cruz was like, Mr. Ted Sarandos, are we on stolen land right now? I think I saw that on Twitter. It's like, I don't know, like, why are you, I don't understand why conservatives try to paint Netflix as this like ultra woke platform. Is Kill Tony not on Netflix? Like, doesn't Netflix put Dave Chappelle specials on their platform, even though like a bunch of their trans employees were like, they were like protesting against Dave Chappelle, and Netflix were like, sorry, we're easy. His specials are going to stay on. So it's like, I don't even understand. I don't know, that seems like such a weird attack from conservatives to be like, Netflix is actually super woke. I actually feel like Netflix is probably just like, they're probably very libertarian in that sense, where they're like, yeah, we'll have some woke stuff like a race swapped Cleopatra documentary or whatever. And we'll also have Kill Tony on our platform. I feel like Netflix is fair and balanced in that way. Yeah, you're saying Superman destroyed 3 Marvel movies? That is true. But to be fair, they were 2 very weak Marvel movies, right? Like, let's be real. Both Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday are probably going to make more than double the Superman box office. Let's be real, okay? Superman beat Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolt and Fantastic Four. Superman and Avengers Doomsday are going to make more money than Superman. And then John, you're saying it went to streaming, but not short in window. It probably made it shorter, but the streaming wasn't the window change. Yeah, sorry. So what I meant to say was like the exclusivity window was shortened, right? So instead of after 45 days of being in theaters and then it gets put on PVOD, like that's the exclusive in movie theaters window where it's not on streaming. Instead of being 45 days exclusively in theaters, it was 35 days exclusively in theaters. But yes, you're right. it was still in theaters after it was put on PVOD. I don't know. Does that make sense? What I just said, I feel like it didn't make sense. But hopefully you understand what I mean. You're saying dishonest, but stretch the truth. It's like, yeah, it's like, it really depends on how charitable you want to be with James Gunn. I would say, yeah. I mean, I would say the word dishonest. Like, yes, I'm sure the Peacemaker thing had to do with it, but according to Ted Sarandos, it was also because it was underperforming. James Gunn chose not to include that part. Okay. Second to last story. We only have 2 more stories left. Clayface just got a date change. So Variety is reporting audiences will have to wait a little longer to familiarize themselves with Clayface. One of DC's lesser known characters, the superhero film was originally slated to hit theaters on September 11th. It will now move to October 23rd. So apparently this has a lot to do with, so it says Clayface was originally going to square off against a new adaptation of Sense and Sensibility. Now the film will slide into the opening date vacated by another Warner Brothers release, Remain, which moved into 2027. Now this is, so let me gather my thoughts here. I think this mostly had to do with just strategically, like, moving your dates around. Like, I think another movie was delayed into 2027, and Warner Brothers really wanted a movie in that date, so they figured, well, let's move Clayface into October. So I think this really doesn't have to do with, oh no, Clayface isn't turning out well, we have to do reshoots, let's delay the movie. I don't think that's what's going on here. At least I hope. But I don't think that's going on here. Based off of what I'm reading in this article, this really just has to do more with strategy than anything. Now, this next bit kind of worried me when I read it. It said, also premiering that weekend are an untitled Jordan Peele project from Universal, as well as the Rosamund Pike thriller Wife and Dog. When I first read that, I was like, wait, are they going to have Clayface and a new Jordan Peele movie competing? That sounds disastrous. I don't think that's what that means, because I was trying to look a little bit deeper into it. I found a bunch of other articles saying that the untitled Jordan Peele movie was going to release in October of 2026, but it got delayed into 2027. So I think what this paragraph is saying is that the untitled Jordan Peele project is releasing on the same weekend as this Remain movie, which moved into 2027. Because I'll just say right now, if they really think that Clayface should be premiering on the same weekend as an untitled Jordan Peele project, I don't think you want that smoke, DC, because a Clayface movie, you're probably looking at like maximum of $50 million opening weekend. And if you put that up against Jordan Peele, like, his movies have motion. I don't think, and they're both going to be horror movies. Like, that would be disastrous, I think, for both movies. So I don't think they're doing that. But hey, listen, at the end of the day, I think that October is a really cool date for Clayface. I mean, it's a horror movie. Putting it in the Halloween season, that honestly makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm excited for Clayface. I think it's a cool project to make. Is it weird that we're getting a Clayface movie before a DCU Batman movie? Yes, but I also respect the weirdness. I kind of respect that James Gunn is saying, hey, we're still working on Batman. We're trying to get this script right. We're also not wanting to go into production on a DCU Batman movie until, James Gunn or Matt Reeves' second Batman movie, because we don't want these two movies to to be. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't want these two movies competing with one another. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. So, like, I kind of appreciate that James Gunn is like, even though we're waiting for DCU Batman, we're not just gonna say no to a Mike Flanagan Clayface script, you know? Like, does it make super like strategic sense? No. but I respect it, I guess I should say. Hold on, let me text the person that was calling me. The wonders of being live. I can't edit me texting this person that's calling me. I can't edit it out. Okay. Let's see. Johnny Dome says horror movies near Halloween is good. It's odd, but building up a villain, then boom, Batman shows up in his own movie with Robin. I mean, that's also another thing, right? Like, would they introduce the new Batman in a Clayface movie? Honestly, again, it's weird, but that could be cool, right? Like, yeah, like, I mean, in general, like, take out Clayface. My guess is that, yeah, like, we're probably going to have Batman showing up in other people's movies. Like, that actually would be smart, right? Like, hey, we're waiting. We don't want Matt Reeves Batman and DCU Batman to be, like, competing in the same in the same time frame or whatever. While Matt Reeves' Batman movie is being made and coming out, let's have the DCU Batman show up in Clayface. Let's have him maybe show up in Man of Tomorrow. That could make sense. Actually, that's a good thing to point out there. All right, last story of the day. So this broke like right as I was finishing setting up the stream today. Nexus Point News is reporting that Tramell Tillman's mystery character in Spider-Man Brand New Day has finally been revealed. Nexus Point News has learned that Tramell Tillman is set to portray an obscure X-Men villain, William Metzger, in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Who is that? Well, William or Metzger will serve as the leader of damage control in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and will be an anti-mutant character. Sources tell Nexus Point News that Tillman signed a multi-picture deal which potentially includes Marvel Cinematic Studios' upcoming X-Men films. So, this is very interesting if true. So, oh my god. So, this is, I always say this, right? Whenever it's not like one of the major trades or whatever, like Deadline or Variety, Hollywood Reporter, yada, 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 you gotta take these reports with a grain of salt, right? Nexus Point News is like one of these weird offshoot sites. Could be true, but you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. That being said, this does kind of track with what we've been seeing in Wonder Man, right? Because damage control and the way that they treat superpowered beings does feel like we're setting the groundwork for mutants in the MCU. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure in Wonder Man, like, that's like the first time we've seen overt systemic oppression of superpowered beings. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because obviously we had the Sokovia Accords, but that was mostly like the government trying to get superheroes to work with them. Like the fact that in Wonder Man, minor spoilers for Wonder Man, we got it revealed that superpowered beings, they explicitly can't be actors in the MCU because of the liabilities of all of that. That would make sense. That is setting the stage for Damage Control to be like the primary antagonistic force for mutants in the MCU. And yeah, if Tramell Tillman is playing an anti-mutant character, you know what that means? Sadie Sink probably is Jean Grey. Like, those rumors probably are true. And that could be an interesting plot point for them to start setting up in Avengers Doomsday. Or not in Avengers Doomsday, in Spider-Man Brand New Day. That all tracks to me, actually. That it would make sense. Because Destin Daniel Cretton, he sort of set up the framework for that in Wonder Man. He's directing Spider-Man Brand New Day. Like, this all tracks. The lines are connecting. Or whatever. But, there we have it. Those were all the stories. That was a lot. The stream's been going for over an hour. My throat is kind of shot. But I had fun either way. So, let me know what you thought of any and all topics talked about today. And I will see you in the next video.